Well, welcome to 2021, everyone. SB20 Australia, Jane Austen Media here. Tonight's SB20 in Conversation is all about preparing for the 6ty SB20 Tasmanian Championship 2021. As we know, it's the first time that the Tasmanian Championship has been held in the north of the state, so we're absolutely thrilled to be working with Port Dalrymple Yacht Club and the team up there to bring you what will be a history-making regatta. So we're very excited about that. Before we get into tonight's session, I just wanted to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, and for me that's the Muwinina people from the Trawita, and to acknowledge elders past, present and emerging. Online tonight, our special guests, we're all special, but our most special guest tonight, Murray Jones, who's going to take us through a discussion about the rules. Welcome, Murray. And Peter Sluice from PDYC, who's the race officer for the event in Launceston. And our president, Scott Glanville, is also online to answer any questions about the regatta, and also acknowledge our treasurer, Jill Abel, and vice president, Chris Dare. Chris, you can hear us well from wherever you are. Where are you in the world? Are you in Victoria or New South Wales?
Well, I'm locked out of New South Wales. I'm stuck in Victoria. So anyway,
you can't take a trick with those borders. Anyway, good to see you, and Happy New Year. So tonight, the sort of general plan, and we can be fairly relaxed, but our general plan is to have a bit of a discussion with Peter and Scott about logistics for the event. Then we'll go on to a more detailed discussion about the rules with Murray, and then we'll move on to tides and weather, and a quick chat around socials and volunteers. We'll have a Q&A session at the end, but being that we don't have a big team from the North online, we may not get a lot of questions tonight. So we'll just see how we're travelling in terms of timing. If people are happy to take questions on the go, is that all right with you guys? Or would you like to keep them to the end?
No, that's cool with me.
Yep. All right. We'll take them as we go, and if things get out of control, we'll hold them back a little bit till we get through some of the main stuff. So what I might do is hand over to Peter and to Scott to start off with a bit of a chat about logistics, and maybe if you could lead off, Peter, around timing of arrival and what boats need to do in planning their arrival in Launceston or at Beauty Point.
Yep. Drive through Launceston to start with. So. I might just share my screen because I've got up, hopefully that'll work.
No. You're the boardroom, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay, try that now. I've just made you a co-host, so you should be able to share screen.
Where are we?
Just down on the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Rightio. Yep, okay, share. Everyone got a picture, aerial photo there?
It's still coming. There we go. We've got it here.
Rightio. Well, I'll just run through your agenda there, Jane. So time of arrival for anyone who's coming up early. I think Barry and David Blaisley, who looks after the trailer park there, they'll probably be on site from 12 o'clock anyway, so there's no dramas. If anyone's coming up before that, yeah, probably just drop me or Barry an email and we can let the caretaker know what's going on. This is your...
That's 12 o'clock on the Friday, Peter, you're talking.
Yes, yeah. So it's easy enough to find the club. There's a sign on Flinders Street there that's got a state titles banner over the top of it, so you won't miss that on your way in. So just turn down there, and there's 3 gates to the trailer park, but we're going to have this southern one open here, so you just basically drive straight in, and the intention is that the Wednesday before we've cleared this area here of existing trailables, just doubled them up for parking, and that's where you guys can park your boats. So basically, and then trailers afterwards, we'll have some of the slipway cleared off and that area will still be free. So going on the numbers we've got so far, we're not going to have any trouble with room to park boats and stuff. So is anyone looking at, I think Chris was possibly coming before then, or?
Yeah, Pete will be up there on Wednesday morning. So.
Okay, well that's perfect. There's a Wednesday evening race, so we'll just let the caretaker know. There's probably guys about anyway.
Yeah, so we'll come over on the ferry on the Tuesday night and then just come down and then get the boat set up.
Yep.
What's the go once you're in the water? So is there a spot you can go to so we can leave the boats in?
Yeah, if you want to stay in. So that's the launching ramp off the trailer park. This side's a jetty with boards on it. So you've got something to sit up against. Then you've got a walkway out to a pontoon. So by the time you're backed in, your back of your boat's nearly at the pontoon anyway, or you can just walk it down via the walkway. And then over the regatta, we're going to have all of the jetty pontoons clear.
Yep.
The best pontoons for the SBs are these 3 running east-west. They're a little bit lower in the water, so they suit the lower boats. So, yeah, if you want to leave your boat in, do that, Chris, or when you can pull it back out again, there's no drama. So there'll be a spot there to do it. Regatta-wise, we'll sort of fill up this side of it, maybe double the boats up. I mean, we should be able to get 2 on each pontoon anyway, and then over onto these ones. It may be that we just put 2 boats in there and tie them into the centre, if that makes sense. The fenders, they've all got fenders around them, but they're just a little bit higher than the, or about level with the SB gunnels. So people walking from side to side, your gunnel can go under them. So, but we might even have the committee boat, and your big rib might be in there. So that'd be perfect for boats to just pull up beside them anyway. So I don't think we'll have any problems in that area. We'll keep our rescue boats and things down on these ones, which are a bit tidal, and the one in here. So it's really just the main jetties, the berthing area. So, and there should be at nearly, I think we'll be right. The worst case is going to be Saturday morning launching, but I think you'll be right to get launched and be able to drop your board at this, at the pontoon near the jetty. It'll get better as the day goes on, obviously, but I think first thing in the morning it'll be a little bit tight there with the tide. So trailers we've covered. Towing wise, yeah, we've thought about that. Once you guys have launched, because you won't have outboards, we'll just have one of our ribs there hovering around just to tow boats over to the jetty, so you can hang off the jetty or off the pontoons at the jetty on the morning. So we've got that covered. Post regatta, yeah, I mean, I guess there'll be a bit of a rush, but I guess our guys will just hang around and they're not in a rush to go anywhere, so they'll probably just tie up and sort themselves out afterwards. So yeah, there's enough room at the pontoon here to stack up 2 boats as you're going in anyway. So that shouldn't be greatly different to what you've got in down south. It just there's a little bit less queuing room, I would suppose. That's about it. If anyone's got any questions, probably.
So that rib's 26 feet, so that'll comfortably, they're full boat berths, are they, over the other side?
Yeah, they're surprisingly enough, because I designed the pontoons, they're about Holland 25 size, so you can fit 2 Hollands in there. So they're about, I think they're 12, what are they, 10 metres long and 20 feet across the base. So yeah.
Apparently you get a luxury ride, Jane, for this event.
Oh, really? How exciting. Champagne and everything?
Well, the champagne will need to go over the bow. I guess you'll be christening it.
Oh, is this Will's new boat?
Will's new boat, yeah.
Oh, there you go. Well, it's probably Felicity's job, but how exciting. Just in relation to hoses and taps and things, is that all close by to the ramp there?
Yeah, top of the ramp there's a dual head hose there, and another one. There's one there and one at the rescue boat shed. So yeah, you can have one boat washing down there, one just comes straight out and in front of the rescue boat shed, and they can wash down there. So yeah. So the ramp's basically, it's a twin ramp, so you should be able to get 2 boats up and down all the time, depending on which side you pull in. So Yeah.
Security of gear, Peter, like sails and all that. That'd be right.
Yeah,
Trailers, no issue.
No issue. I mean, this is all fenced and gated. You can walk in from the slipway end, but it's floodlit as well, and there'll be, at least from the club side of things, there'll be 2 or 3 people sleeping there all weekend anyway, so that's no drama at all. Yeah, I mean, nobody takes their outboards off. Well, some do take their outboards off, but a lot leave them on. But we haven't had any problems with gear being pinched or anything like that. So, and a normal dinghy regatta weekend, everybody just leaves their boats in front of the clubs, and we've never had any problems either. So it's all pretty good in that way.
And is there plenty of depth between the actual ramp and the marina? Is that a real shallow spot?
No. There's plenty of water through there. Yeah, it's keelboat depth all the way through. The only thing is, and I don't think it'll affect us, but just getting into these berths that are real low tide, you just need to keep in close. Don't take a great big arc back into the shore. So, but the afternoons that won't be an issue.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on numbers, I think we'd probably get most of the boats on the 3 pontoons there anyway. So, yeah.
Excellent.
We'll make it work, that's for sure. It's not a drama.
All righty. Any other questions from anyone online? Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Scott, in terms of logistics, or has that covered everything from your perspective?
Peter's got that under control.
Yep.
I presume the race briefing will be in the clubhouse, Peter, on the morning?
Yep. Upstairs in the clubhouse, and I'm going to do the weigh-ins and registration, or we just downstairs in the sailing office. So that's all easily accessible. So cool.
Yeah. We're recording this and we'll post the recording, but is there anything that's not in the notice of race that you think entrants might need to have their attention drawn to, whether we need any other, I don't know, a one-pager which has got any extra information, or do you think people will work it out pretty quickly?
I think they'd be pretty right, but I guess I'm saying that from a point of view of somebody who's sailed there for 20-something years, so everything's fairly obvious. But we'll run through the tides and the other stuff later on, and mention a bit about just where there are a couple of shallow spots and things. So. Yeah. But yeah, there's no issue with depth-wise around the club area. So I mean, you bring in 40-foot boats with no issues. So.
Excellent.
I've got a question there, Joan.
Yeah, sure. Go, Nick.
Good. I'm glad you can hear me. Hi, Peter. I just wanted to know about weed. Do you have any problems with weed? No.
The only problem we have with weed is some ribbon weed on the bottom, which occasionally makes it hard for us to anchor. But occasionally over winter you get it if you have there's a bit in the river, but it's not a regular or a major problem. No.
Okay. All right. Well, if anyone's got any questions that come up while you're listening to the next session on rules, just hang on to those towards the end, and we'll come back to them. Thanks very much, Peter, and I'll ask Murray to give us a bit of an overview on not every rule that applies to the class, Murray, unless you've done lots of homework, but some particular rules that might be of particular interest, particularly to the some of the new sailors into the class.
Yeah, thanks, Jane. Yeah, first of all, I just would like to run through the notice of race, because some of the class rules, of course, are impacted by what's said in the notice of race. So I know not everyone reads the race documents, but I'm one of those desperate people who've got nothing better to do except read them. So if I could just point out some of the things which people may not be familiar with but need to know for this regatta. And you would have noticed in 1.3 that Appendix P applies. And this is a little unusual in keelboats because it's one that's often used in off the beach sailing. But that's all about Rule 42, humping, ooching, rocking, sculling, all those sorts of things. And it means that you can be penalised on the water. And the important part about that is that you need to understand what happens when your number gets hailed and the yellow flag pointed at you, you need to take a penalty. It is a one-turn penalty only because it's changed by this notice of race. Normally it would be 2. And the other thing you need to notice is you need to understand what happens with P2.2, which is mentioned here. You need to actually go back to the rule book and look at that. Don't worry about 2.3 because that's been deleted. But 2.2 means that if you get pinged twice in the regatta, then you must retire from the race. And if you choose not to, then you'll be scored a disqualification not excludable. So it's pretty important that you understand what sort of response you're going to get to one of those. Keeping in mind, of course, there are not many occasions when you'd expect an SB20 to be guilty of any of those offences. Probably the most the one that I see right on the edge from time to time is just putting too many pumps in, just a little bit of general rocking when it's really light. But I think we're going to have pretty good sailing conditions, so we probably won't see any infringements. But if we do get some, make sure you know what you have to do. The other thing I wanted to point out was that, the crew weighing, of course, and again, you need to read that in conjunction with the class rules. You need to know what the weight is, and you must do it during registration. So if you're close to it, then make sure you prepare for it. There's a bit about support boats and what they're allowed and not allowed to do. So make sure that any boats you've got supporting you are aware of those requirements, because the rules now allow boats to be penalised for the actions of their support boats.
But, sorry, Murray, can I ask a question of Pete just in relation to that then? So is there going to be a boat available to stick spare equipment on the water, just, so that if you, break a pole, you can go over to and quickly grab a spare and pull it out rather than have to go back in?
I would expect not, because notice of race says that a yacht shall receive no outside assistance from support boats or support persons.
Yes, sometimes
she's left the dock for the day.
Yeah, sometimes, Murray, they're not called support boats if the boat's available to everyone. Typically, it's a committee boat, one of the race committee boats.
We can have a boat available if the class wants it. So
just a question.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's not my call, so it's really up to the association to talk with the organising authorities.
We don't have any.
Pardon?
Provide all the spares. We don't have any.
Sounds like a great idea.
Sure, with Nick and I, we can have a floating, area though. So anyway, it's just it's just something that's come up from time to time. The idea of support boats. I know what they're trying to do, but if the vessel's available for everyone, and that some people want to stick stuff on, we're trying to keep people on the water as much as we can. So you don't.
I agree with what you're trying to do there, Chris. Really, it's not my call. It'll be up to the organising authority to sort of make a call on that. So give you something to think about, Scott.
Yeah. Yep. There's something for nationals too as well, Scott. So.
Right. So and what else was there in the notice of race? I just wanted to point out the penalty, of course, is only one turn, which is one tack and one jibe in the same direction, except for infringements that occur inside the zone. That's the 3 boat length zone. And another bit there about rule observers may blow a whistle. And of course, when that system is used, they're not going to tell you who they think is right or wrong, because sometimes they don't see the whole incident. They'll see a touch or whatever. They don't have all the circumstances. They will just blow a whistle. It is up to the competitors to make a decision then and make that call themselves, should one of you take a penalty or should one of you go ahead and protest. The protest observer, of course, will no doubt be available as a witness if required. In 16, of course, it mentions that arbitration applies to the regatta, so it's Appendix T of the rules. Just make sure you understand what that's all about. It just means that if you're involved in a boat-on-boat incident and you think afterwards that, well, maybe I might have been in the wrong, things were a bit uncertain at the time, you go to the arbitration, you get a couple of minutes to explain your side of the story, no witnesses. The arbitrator will make a call as to who he thinks will probably win the protest, and the person who may be in the wrong has an opportunity then to take a 30% penalty as opposed to going to the room and getting disqualified. Now, they can still choose to go to the room and fight it, but if they've got a strong opinion from the arbitrator that they're not going to win it, then it's probably better to take the 30% penalty. And the 30% penalty is based on the number of starters. So, for example, there were 15 starters, 30% of that being 4.5. Oh no, sorry, the score for did not finish. So it will be 16 points would be the score for did not finish. So 30% of that being 4.8, rounded up to 5. 5 places you would be penalised, but not beyond last. So yeah, and the haul-out restriction, of course, got to be in by 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning and stay in for the duration of the regatta. So that was it from the notice of race. Was there any questions from that before I go on to class rules?
They're just older, whereas he's literally dangerous.
Yes, Murray, I've got a question.
Right, Nick.
I just wanted to double check. Queues have got to be left
Yeah.
and runners can be taken out.
So what was the question again? It's a bit quiet here.
While the boats are in the water, somebody's got their...
someone's got a mic on.
You're really so critical.
Yeah, I'm dealing with it.
Okay.
Not me,
yeah. Yeah, Murray, with the boats going in the water, once they're in the water, queues have to stay down. They're not allowed to be winched up.
That's a very good question, Nick, because it's not actually addressed in, it doesn't specify that one way or the other in the class rule. Yeah, I remember you asked me this question once before when we were in the water. And yeah, I didn't find a definitive answer, but it's not mentioned in the class rule, so perhaps it needs to be specified again if that's what the organising authority wants. Let me just do some checks on that in case I can find something, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't mention it.
Generally, there's some wording that says the keels can't be listed unless they've got prior approval from the racing committee, isn't it? And is that in sailing instructions?
It wasn't in your last national.
No?
It wasn't in your last nationals.
Oh, we probably missed it then, Peter.
Yeah, sometimes we put that in and sometimes we forget, I think, Scott.
Mm. That's the intent though, isn't it, Steve?
Yes.
Yes.
And it makes sense safety-wise.
Correct.
Yeah, you don't want to be lifting keels and blows through 40 knots. You'll have a whole heap of boats on their side the next morning. So
we might address that in
Yep.
sailing instructions then, Peter.
We can do it.
the other one, Scott, is just because we had a couple of people bringing divers at the National, so with diving tanks and other bits and pieces. So just you might want to be clear on what's permissible or not. I don't think that one of the culprits is coming up to the States, but
well, again, the race document says they stand now and the class rules don't prohibit it. So it needs to be written in if you want to ban it.
I think the intention is that wasn't meant to happen, but if you don't explicitly say it, it happens.
Hmm.
You're a creative bunch, I'll say that much.
Oh.
Ain't seen nothing yet, Peter.
Competitive, did you say?
So were there any other questions on the notice of race? But okay, well, I'll just go through a couple of things in the class rules then. What did I cover in there? I think I made a start, didn't I? Yeah, look, I think the most important part about those rules, of course, is that they're what's called closed rules. And so if the rules don't specifically state that you can do something, then you shall not. So any areas where there's any doubt, then you can't do it. Yeah, look, everything there is covered. There was one other one in there I wanted to talk about just briefly, C9.8, whatever that was. Oh, yeah, okay. The bowsprit, of course, yeah. And of course, that requires that the bowsprit should be fully retracted at all times other than when the spinnaker is set or in the act of being set or recovered. Now, of course, that that's the one that people do complain about from time to time. And I would think that anything more than a 1 or 2 second delay in action from the time the bowsprit goes out to when the next movement in the boat starts, like going for the halyard or the tack line, anything more than a second or so, then it is not in the process of doing it. So it's important that there is no distinct gap between those two things. Otherwise, you're subject to protest. And of course, there will be boats out there taking photos, I'm sure. And when we see a boat steaming along the offset leg with their spinnaker pole out and nothing else happening, then I'm sure someone will like to protest.
Yeah. Can I just make a comment there, Murray? I mean, we can have guys that Ben might have had one race in his boat before he gets on the water. The intent of that rule is, as you said it, to basically at the top mark you're not allowed to pull your pole out, and at the bottom mark you're not allowed to go off and do 3 or 4 tacks with it out. That's what they're trying to stop, isn't it? I mean,
well, yeah, it's a safety thing as much as anything.
Yeah. So I think there might be some of our guys that there might be more than a second delay because the crew probably doesn't even know where the halyard is. If you get my drift.
That's pretty accurate. Yep.
So the back end of the fleet, there might be a little bit of leniency involved. I think.
Yeah. I think I don't think that. Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to get too excited about that. And realistically, there's a delay in action, and I gave an example of going for the halyard. If you're looking around trying to find the halyard, that's a continuous thing. You know, he's just being slow about it. So,
he was continuously looking for it, but he hadn't found it.
If the top couple of players try that angle, though, I suspect someone will complain.
Does that apply to us too, Murray?
Yeah, probably should, Nick. Yeah.
Depends where you are in the fleet, Nick, I reckon.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was really all I wanted to talk about on the rules. Hiking, of course, the requirement to keep the base of the spine inside the granny rail. I don't think anyone has any issues with that. And that includes being outside the line of the forward extension, but that doesn't apply to the after extension because the skipper and the mainsheet hand even can hang over the side after the granny rail. And of course, you can only use your foot straps to support yourself while you're doing that. Yeah, so just in rules generally, I just wanted, one of the things I think people get a bit confused about sometimes is using the gate, and especially if heading down when you're heading to the right-hand gate and you're approaching it on starboard and another boat is on port. People seem to think that port and starboard apply. This is one of the few occasions, well, in fact, it's the only occasion, I think, when the port tack boat has some rights, doesn't have all the rights, but they are entitled to room at that mark. If that's the mark, if they get to the zone and they're inside, overlapped, it doesn't matter about the crazy angles. And if you think about that way the angles are, they have an overlap. Now, one boat's got to be clear astern of the other. And when you look at how you measure an overlap, looking at across the transom of one boat to the other, it's really hard to do that when you're coming at different angles. So almost all the time, the port jibe boat will have room to go around the mark, but it is only room. And it's not room to make a tactical rounding, that is the wide approach and narrow exit. He must go close to the mark. And the starboard jibe boat must let him.
How do you know which mark he's going to, Murray?
Well, there's the interesting thing, Chris, yeah. And probably always a recommendation for the race committee to make sure they don't leave it subject to some sort of judgment as how far apart the marks are.
Yes.
As an absolute minimum, they need to be 8 or 10 lengths apart, because if you get to a situation where the 3 boat length zones are overlapping or even close to overlapping, then it does create some confusion. So there needs to be enough separation.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and if of course they're going to the other mark, then it is a port starboard thing. The port jibe boat in that situation needs to make a decision: can he get across the starboard tackle, or should he take his stern? You know, so so it does work itself out most of the time. And I think the other one that I've seen a bit of lately is just understanding Rule 15 at the start, acquiring right of way. When boats are racking up for a start, these boats, of course, they stop. When they stop and then you try and accelerate, their immediate movement is to go sideways. Long skinny board, just typical of a boat with that sort of configuration. They immediately go sideways. So if you're sitting there going nowhere and a boat comes alongside you to leeward, of course you become the windward boat and you're required to keep clear. The leeward boat must initially give you room to keep clear. And so if you immediately respond as soon as the overlap has occurred and it goes sideways and it taps the other boat, then the other boat has not given you room to keep clear. So having said that, it's a dangerous game to play because whenever there's doubt, it will go against the windward boat, right? Because the windward boat's required to keep clear. It doesn't have to anticipate the overlap being made. Sometimes we hear boats coming from astern with a bit of pace, so, you know, yelling up without an overlap. The boat that's about to be overlapped does not have to respond until the overlap actually occurs. And that includes things like, well, you do need to sheet on and get the boat moving a bit, even if it means propelling yourself over the line. Get your boom in if that's what's hanging out there that's going to cause the collision. So, yeah, I think as we all get better at judging our final approach to the line, those things will become a little more critical. Really, though, with any things that I've sort of noticed in recent times that I think apply particularly to this class, but I'm happy to take any general questions on rules.
Yes, I've got one there, Murray.
Yes, Nick.
Just going on with the getting the overlap, keeping in mind that before the start, if you get an overlap to leeward, the weather boat is required to keep clear, and that means they have to go at least up to head to wind if they have to keep clear. Then once the starting gun is gone, there is a proper course. So would you like to just go through that, please, Murray?
Well, yeah, okay, well, you didn't quite sum it up right, but we'll get there. So, yeah, so when a boat, in any other part of the course, when a boat establishes an overlap from astern, they're restricted to proper course, right? They can't sail above their proper course. Before the start, of course, there is no proper course. So if the boat has established their overlap from astern to leeward and then starts pushing the other boat up, then that switches off the instant the gun goes. They must then come back to their proper course. If, however, the windward boat establishes the overlap from astern, then the leeward boat still has full luffing rights. That is, they can hold them all the way to head to, well, they can take them to head to wind. The requirement is on the windward boat to keep clear. If that means tacking off, so be it. Are you happy with that explanation, Nick?
Thank you, Murray. That was very nice.
Right, thanks.
Any other questions for Murray?
I just had a quick one, Muzz. Yeah, just in terms of downwind and two boats with no overlap, but you're getting to the ley line, how long can the inside boat hold you out to that ley line before you're entitled to jibe?
Without an overlap?
Yeah, without an overlap.
Forever.
Yeah. But if there's an overlap,
so that becomes a bit tricky. If there's an overlap, they're restricted to proper, assuming they establish their overlap from astern, which would normally be the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I mean, when I say normally be the case, even if they haven't, the instant the head boat pulls away a bit, that creates the overlap. And so, yes, the overlap has been established from astern. So, therefore, they're restricted to proper course because they've established it from astern.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm happy to run through it with models. It's a bit hard to do that.
Yeah, might just, it was Thursday nights and I was with you guys and we went over the top of you.
Yeah.
And kept going and there was no overlap. So we had passed you, but then you were the inside boat astern and we wanted to dive to go to the finish line.
And you got across in front of us, I think, didn't you? Or did you take our stern? I can't remember now.
No, we waited till you jibed and then we jibed.
Oh, okay. That was very polite of you.
It was very polite. I didn't understand.
Troublemakers.
So it was okay.
It didn't do us any good in the end, I don't
No,
think,
it
did
didn't. So my question was, I was a little bit confused, thinking you're just being pricks about this and holding us out, so it's going to make it an awkward reach to the finish, and we were close to not being able to lay it.
Well, we wanted it to be a reasonably tight reach because we had a weight advantage. If it was a tight reach, but that still was our proper course, So
so we did have to effectively wait until you jibed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was the case, but I wasn't. If you'd caught up to us and created an overlap from astern, could we then have forced you to jibe?
Yeah. Yes, you could have. There should have been an expectation on us to jibe, and and if we didn't, then your response is to put the flag up.
Okay.
They're hard ones to prove, those ones, because we all have a different idea of what the proper course is. It's the course that you might sail in the absence of another boat to get to the finish line as quickly as you can. Now that's different in everyone's mind. So there's a fair bit of latitude in what a proper course is, but sometimes it becomes blinding well best too when it's not.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
I think Pete, your local guys up there, just around the class rule stuff, there's enough people up there, Nick's going up, I think, Steve, myself, Scotty, if anyone's got a question and that, just let them know that they're free to come over and ask, so I suspect between the 4 or 5 of us on the Zoom meeting, we've probably seen most of the ship someone will want to try, so, right, and that, instrument.
Yeah, I think Ben will be taking a second row start, so.
Yeah. But just even on the equipment stuff, changes to the boats and things like that, where I think part of the exercise is to try and educate the fleet up north there. So I'll make myself available before or after the racing if anyone wants to come and have a chat. So.
Yep. No, appreciate it. They'll probably prick your brains on Wednesday night, mate. So.
That's okay. That's fine. If we'll be out, not sailing Wednesday, but if someone wants to be on the water Thursday or Friday, I'm happy to help them out. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Chris.
Say something. I'll go on, Steve.
2 boats get to the. Can you mute, Jamie? Oh.
Why don't you just go on the same Zoom?
He's on mute, Steve.
Yeah, you told me to mute and I only do whatever you tell me, so there you go. Said no one ever.
Okay. 2 boats get to the top mark at much the same time but not overlapped. The boat behind, by the time it gets to the hitch mark, has caught up, gets inside. Does he have room at the hitch mark if it's within 3 boat lengths of the top mark, and if it's beyond 3 boat lengths of the top mark?
Right. Well, the requirement is that he needs to have established his overlap by the time he gets to the moment of hitting the zone. So if the hitch mark is only 3 boat lengths away, and he hasn't got it at the top mark, then that's not possible, is it? So if they're 6 boat lengths apart and halfway across he manages to get his overlap, then yes, he's got an overlap and he's entitled to room. Yeah.
Okay. But they should be less than 3 boat lengths apart. Is that
no? Well, I don't think certainly they should be more than 3 boat lengths apart.
So you can establish an overlap between them then?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, very much so. Yeah.
They're separate marks.
There's usually a lot of shouting when you try and do that.
Well, it's nice to be aware of what's going on around you, I suppose, Steve. People like to let you know. It's very good of them, because you might not have been looking behind.
Communication's a strength of the class.
You're not in front, Steve, and we won't try and get in there, right? So just get out the road.
Do my best.
Any other questions while you're here?
No, that's all. I'll go away.
I was going to say something, Joan.
Okay, you go, Nick.
Okay. All I was going to say, Peter, please don't be worried. Let everybody know up in Launceston, we're coming up to enjoy ourselves and have a bit of fun. There won't be any problems. They want to get up on the start line with us. We're very, very happy to have them there.
No, that's fine. I was only half joking. Also, I've had a chat with your regular RO, and some of the lengths that he's given me that I'm reading are very closely related to the discussion. So the numbers you were mentioning might be noticed as maximums, is what Rossi's given me. So that makes sense.
Yep.
And he's also said I can leave the U flag on the shore. I'll never need it.
Cars only go straight to black anyway.
I can't say I've seen a U flag in Tasmania. They got them, have they? They'll be black or nothing.
We lost a race on Thursday night because they were all so keen, Chris.
Oh, God. I can't believe that, Scott, at all.
No,
Sure.
you couldn't, could you? First race back after Christmas and we wasted one.
I was just going to say, Murray and Jill, that I've got a series of photos of the incident you were talking, or not the incident, but the moment you were talking about, Jill. So happy to send those via email.
Oh, right.
Any other questions at all for Murray?
Ugly looking face at him, like going.
No, I was behind, and it's the shrieking that I go, oh, something's going on here, because I'm not really good on the rules like that. So it's like, yeah, who shrieks the loudest usually?
It's Murray.
The shrieks were not coming from our boat.
Yeah, it's Murray. Yeah, definitely Murray shrieking.
Yeah, Murray couldn't control himself. Okay, well, if that's it for rules, Murray, thank you very much. That was an excellent summary, and yeah, great that everyone's offering to help out up in the north. And as Chris said, we're just there to have fun, so and win the odd race or two. So that's definitely the sentiment of the regatta. Tides and weather. Peter, we're shooting back to you.
No worries. We'll see how we go with this.
This is the bit we're all listening to, Peter.
Yes. Rightio. I guess we'd start with a broad overview of the reason we have the problem. Bass Strait fills in from both sides and we're in the middle. So we end up with regularly 3 metre tides. The race weekend, they're only going to be about 2, so it's a good weekend. So stepping on from that, I guess running through Saturday is going to be the critical one, because you're going to have a what have we got, high tide at, it's off my page here. High tides at 13:53 and we start at 12, so hopefully the first couple of races we'll have an incoming tide, then we should have slack water, and then it'll start to change in the afternoon, well, after that. So running through Saturdays, I mean, basically you've got the rivers feeding in straight down through here. Then when it gets into Bell Bay, it basically has got a big area to fill out into. But you can see this area through here, that's sort of the edge of the, I guess what you'd call the shipping depth water. So that the tide comes in, goes round and heads off. At the same time, some of it, that bank there basically forms a bit of a, I guess, an upside down V. So you get water coming up past the club as well. So the thing, I guess, if it's a reasonably light day, you can actually see that the tide line on the water, it'll show up as just a wavy sort of white line, slightly disturbed, and it's a lot of days it is obvious, you know, smooth side to rough side is, you know, tide against wind, tide not against wind sort of thing. So course wise, with full water, we would be intending to try and race you in here, which has got plenty of depth. This little monstrosity is the ex-AMC, ex-Port Phillip Violet boat, the Waiuna, which is basically half abandoned, sitting in anchor in the middle of the bay. So it's a good tide indicator, but it's a bit of a pain in the arse setting courses and sailing around, but that is what it is, and it's there, and we can't do anything about it. So, so basically, the bottom end of the course, you're basically going to have the tide pushing you down, or you're going to be heading into it for most of Saturday. From the RO's point of view, that's great for the starts because it'll be holding you back, which will make it easier. And it's going to be fairly, I guess, not dramatic across the course. As you're heading up, you'll probably get a bit of a lift off it. So it's probably going to be that the western beat may be favoured heading up. Will lift you up to the mark. It'll probably be the favoured side. Slack water, yeah, which hopefully we probably be around race 3. It's going to be fairly neutral, and it's probably going to be at its worst for race 5. And in that case, it'll be the favoured course side would probably swap, and you'd want to be heading out this side to get the lift of the tide coming down. So when it runs out, it's obviously you got a straight run down Long Reach, hits Bell Bay, swirls round and heads back out the river. So basically from the course point of view, the worst scenario is at your top mark. It can catch you out there, just depending on where we can get the mark. I mean, the intention for us is to get it back as far as we can to minimise the influence, but water depth sometimes will dictate, and course length, that we've got to be up in the more tidal area. So it'll be fairly obvious as you're heading up to the mark, but it can catch you out because the closer you get, that tide speed's going to increase. So you think you're laying it, then the last 50 metres or so, you'll find it's probably running a bit harder than what you think. That's probably the best synopsis of it. Has anyone got any questions at that point? Any more information or any more detail?
Yeah, Peter, I've got one. So when you were assuming then that we were getting a sea breeze, aren't you? Is that?
That's what I'm hoping for, Nick. Yeah, that's the best thing for everyone.
No, I thought that's what you meant.
Yeah. So basically, that time of the year. I mean, we usually hold our blockbuster weekend, which is dinghy regatta, sort of the weekend after that. And yeah, I'd say 70% of the time that's what we get as a sea breeze. Doesn't come directly up the river, sort of comes across the top of Georgetown here. So yeah, which gives us the best track on the river. So other scenarios are obviously course location is obviously swaps around to what the tidal influence will be. So
we're not going to have any shallow water at all to worry about, Peter?
No, but with the tides we've got, as I said, it's only a 2 metre tide, so we've got not super lows. Sunday morning is probably going to be our worst case scenario because we're only an hour after low when we start racing. But we'll just, we'll adapt the course area to suit that. So yeah, it is what it is, I'm afraid. So it just adds to the creativity of it. So another layer over the top.
I've got a question, Peter.
Yep.
Does the tidal flow influence any of the wind that comes into the bay or goes out?
Not really. I mean, it can, and I don't know whether it does or not, but it seems to be on some days if high tide was around midday, it has a tendency to bring the breeze up with it. But it doesn't, not dramatically, I don't think, no. It'll change the sea conditions, obviously, with the tide running out and a good, and not so much with the sea breeze. The sea breeze will chop it up a little bit, but with a westerly, yeah, it chops it up a fair bit. So, but no, nothing significant that I know of. I'll just moving on to the wind. Get that up. Making the most of our government information. That's sort of a topographical overlay, which gives you an idea of some of the heights around the bay. So a westerly coming over Beauty Point, that's sort of a 60-metre drop off the top of the escarpment down to the water. So that does make for gusty conditions close in here, but as you get out into the bay here, it's fine. I mean, we had a single-handed series on Sunday, and it was blowing out here, but it's consistent in direction, even if it was a westerly. It's only when you come back into the shore that it can catch you out. You sort of get the breeze coming around both sides of the headland, but other than that, it's fairly consistent. But hopefully for everyone, it's not a westerly. So shallow patches wise, I mean, what I was saying about the ribbon weed before, that black area, or those black bits you can see there, are actually just weed on the sandy bottom. There's no rocky bottom or anything on the bay, the whole bay, unless you get right over onto the shore, and that's fairly obvious and comes up pretty quick. There is this patch here is a shallower patch off the club, but we can run through that. Basically, when you're heading out to course, our start lines, club start lines, sort of set up here. So you'd head out below that to head over here, or you go up here and round a fixed mark we've got called Z. So that sort of gives you a barrier as to where to avoid. That does get shallow. You wouldn't want to come across that at anything other than a full tide, or you wouldn't want to probably try to do it at a full tide. So, but it's all fairly obvious. I mean, we run our inshore champs back in November. We're running it for, you know, Beneteau 40s have run in it and things like that. So there's plenty of water there to do it at the high tide. It's not a drama. So, I mean, I race a hole in 25, which draws the same as you guys, and there's no real drama points on the river, so in that bay area, and we definitely won't be setting you anywhere that's going to cause an issue. So
excellent. Look, thanks very much, Peter. Were there any other questions for Peter about from a tide or weather perspective? All good. Alrighty, thanks for sharing your screen there too, Peter. That's it's much better to actually have the picture, isn't it, to see what's what and what's where.
I guess
sorry.
Thinking about the only thing that might happen on Sunday, because we're starting that early, similar to what you guys will get in Hobart, we might end up with start off in a southerly. So just as the draft coming back out from up the Toma Valley, and that swap over. But yeah, that's a suck it and see it on the day. So it might be a change course sort of halfway through day, or change direction. We could have a dead patch before we get cranking again. So
yep. Well, we'll wait and see what we get. Hey.
Yep. Definitely.
Lovely. Thanks, Peter. So moving on to socials and volunteers. Jill, are you still online? Would you like to have a bit of a chat about the social side of life? Have you got something up your cook your own dinner sleeve?
Well, we've engaged Maddie Salter as one of our crew members, so she's got all the drinking games ready to go.
So I've noticed.
So watch out, everybody. Make sure you've got your false teeth in, nice and securely, and we'll see how we go. No, we'll keep them slightly responsible.
Excellent.
Sounds good for us.
And in terms of volunteers, I had someone just approach me during the week saying they were keen to volunteer. So just in terms of process, I'll send that through to you, Peter, just to add to a list. If you've got one going there, and
Yeah, was that Amanda or?
Yeah, Amanda. Yeah.
No, she's already sorted. She's helping Barry with registration. So
fabulous.
Yep.
Excellent. Alrighty. So just into anything COVID related that we need to cover, or are we all good?
Yeah, there's, as you come into the club, there's either a sign-in or a Q code app there. So I guess just sign in each day, and just keep in mind at registration, there's that on the back of the notice of race, there's that COVID deck and your safety declaration as well. So they're to be handed in at weigh-in. So that's only from the club's point of view, COVID-wise. Yeah. I think Greg and Barry will just run through it if there's any other stuff on the race briefing. So.
Just while you're talking about registrations, it might be beneficial, especially for the northern boats, just to remember the safety form that needs to be signed, witnessed and uploaded to Top Yacht.
Okay, they need to do that as well as the one on the entry. That doesn't cover them.
Need to reread the one on the entry to make sure we were required to change our form from Australian Sailing to make sure we had it witnessed. The original forms, we didn't have a witness on there, and Australian Sailing wanted us to make that a requirement. So.
Okay. Right out on a moment, I would doubt whether any of our boats are actually on Top Yacht, so but we can work through that our end.
I mean, well, that's only for future regatta, so it's on there. For this one, if they gave it to you, that would still be sufficient.
Yeah. I don't think we've got any problems with how it's set up. So yeah. Yep.
So all of ours all of ours are uploaded on Top Yacht. So that's what we'd be relying on as being compliant.
Yep.
And just one last question. Where do we end up with the weigh-in? I remember when we had an online session, we were saying weigh-in and then not weigh-in, or there'd be an on-the-spot check for some people. Where is everyone weighing in, Scott? I can't remember.
Well, Chris and I were texting about that. I had a feeling we got to the point we weren't weighing in, but I was going to catch up with Peter afterwards just to clarify that.
It's up to you guys. We haven't bought the scales yet.
I think in the end we decided that we didn't want to put anyone off by that, so we decided that it wouldn't be a mandatory requirement, but that if they were asked, they would have to do it. Basically, puts the onus back on somebody to protest if they think there's an issue. So,
yeah, if someone turns up 5 up, they're probably likely to go and be asked to have a weigh-in, be my guess. Or 4 up with people about my size, probably be asked to go and have a weigh-in, particularly if it's windy.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think, Scott, we'd agreed, consistent with the previous states, we wouldn't have a weigh-in at registration. However, you still have to stick to the class rules, and there is a limit on weight.
Yeah.
I think you updated that. Peter, you did just send me an email to say that you were going to put that in and update it into the new one.
It is amended as you emailed me at 3 o'clock in the morning or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Murray might have grabbed one of the older ones before we got that up, but yeah, I'm pretty certain that's how we agreed on it.
Yeah.
Right, so you're saying it's not required?
Correct.
Right, okay. Well, you just need to be a little careful then on having some sort of policy about weighing something at random, because it says that the class rule says that there shall be a weigh-in if it's specified in the notice of race. And that shall happen at registration. So you can't do it sort of halfway through the regatta, because people can be under at the start and then have a good feed and be over. That often happens. We understand that, but the requirement is, if you're going to have it, to weigh in at registration. So
we'll pick 5 names out of a hat then, Murray, and not tell people until the morning which ones they do, which I've seen happen at other worlds.
Yeah.
And that, right. So let's put that in, Scott, and I reckon that'll address that.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah,
I think the important thing was we wanted to make sure that the newer boats we're aware that it's a class rule, but
Yeah.
not get him in a position to be scared off by it. That was the intent of how we came at it. But we'll just touch base with Peter and just make sure we've got our wording and everything happy. We need to send a slight revision out. We'll do that.
I think, Murray, what we're seeing is that, you know, the last 12 months, you know, the class rules and the breaches of them, the obvious ones, hiking, etc., become a little more common practice as people continue to push envelopes. So, and that. So we want to try and the state titles. We'd like people to turn up in class prim.
Yeah,
Historically,
I'm all for that. Yeah, but just that currently at the moment, you notice a race says that crew weighing, according to the class rules, shall happen, and every crew shall be presented at the same time. So, yeah, clearly, if we're not going to do that, we need to make that change.
Yeah, right.
Yep, we'll make sure we're right.
And the only other last question I had was, did we still have a spectator boat available if anybody did want to go out, or is the viewing going to be easy enough from the shore?
It definitely will be easy enough from the shore, but Chris indicated that this big rib's got, you'll have some friends with you, Jane, so.
Yeah, Will, the owner, has certainly indicated that he's happy to take on a few extras on the media boat. Obviously, that means they need to understand that their primary job on the boat is to go around for Jane to take photos, but it is big enough that a few will sit on there.
Yeah, we might see how we go with that, because that's happened to me before and I've ended up literally with kids and dogs, and it's a little bit
I think, yeah,
tricky.
you're quite right. It needs to be controlled, yes.
Yeah, but no, look, and I haven't had anyone talk about like wanting to be on a spectator boat. It was just in case someone asked, because sometimes they do, and it's often about half an hour before a race starts. So,
yeah.
Because the club's two-story, you've got a fairly good view of the course.
Yeah.
Most of the dinghy parents, when they come up, a set of binoculars, and they're quite content. They can see what's going on. So.
I was just going to say, and the bar's open in the day just to go along with the binoculars.
Yes, yeah. Special licenses being arranged, so that's not a problem.
Love it.
Do you know whether the two guys who said they could possibly crew have got anything yet?
I haven't heard anything, but I probably won't. They haven't come back to me.
Have you heard anything, Peter?
No. It was the guy up the coast, wasn't it? So.
Jane had somebody who I wasn't aware of, and then Mike was the other guy from the coast.
Right.
Yeah, I think it was Broderick Lang, or he'd sailed in Perth and was going to be in the north when the regatta was on.
Anyway, it's there.
We'll see how we go. Yep.
Find someone.
All right. Any last questions or comments before we wind up? No, all good. All right. Well, look, thanks everyone for joining us tonight. And as I said, I'll put the recording up on our YouTube channel and share that. So just as a reminder, if we can share, everyone share with their fans our SB20 posts. It's good for our sponsors and just good to get the word out there. So thanks, Murray, Peter and Scott, particularly for your preparation for tonight. And it's 60 degrees, that's what I should be saying, isn't it, Pete? 60 degrees architecture, surveying and engineering.
That's the one, Joe.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you get your hand over your company to get rebranded by a creative firm.
It took me a couple of goes. I'm so literal. I'm like 6ty, and then that funny symbol, and then my daughter goes, "It's 60 degrees," and I'm like, "Of course it is. I knew that." Okay. Look, and again, thanks to Joe Wallace from 60 Degrees, to the CEO for his support, and all the other sponsors for PDYC as well. Okay, so we just need everyone to enter, drum up some business, and we'll be seeing everyone face to face in a couple of weeks. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you local sailors on the water on Thursday night, and everyone else in the north. See you, and look forward to meeting you, Ben.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Jane.
Take care.
Ben.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, everyone.
While I've got you there, Scott.
I'm still here, Nick, and I'm still recording. So do you want me to end the meeting?
Yes, end the meeting, yes, please. I was actually going to ask
I'll
Scott
cut you off. So what I'll do is I'll stop recording.
Okay.